Alright guys, what's going on? This is SecondBlank here, and I know what you're telling yourself right now. This is not Battlefield 3 at all. And I would say that you're right. It is not Battlefield 3 at all. But it is still a gameplay commentary thingamabobber. And I think that's all that matters, really. You're still getting the cookie either way. So, as long as it's a gameplay commentary thingamabobber, I think it will suffice for the topic I have at hand also. But anyway, yeah. This is actually some, I almost called it Battlefield 3, but it's not. I'm just so used to saying that. It is a Call of Duty Black Ops zombie gameplay on Ascension, because I fucking love zombies. I fucking love it. Time and time, I always go back to this game and play some zombies, trying to relax, trying to take my mind off of other games, of other things, try to get myself out of reality and into the zombie world where I try to survive through a number of waves. And you're asking yourself, well, why are you showing us the zombie gameplay from an old game? I guess it's considered old now because it's probably like a year old, and well, I guess more than a year old now. And I'm showing you this, guys, because of the topic I want to tell you guys, and that is the topic of used games. Now, this is a topic where it kind of was arisen a while back. I think like 2 months ago, when I guess when people were talking about or were starting to talk about the Xbox 720, which is, I guess, the unofficial name that everyone's giving it now, because that's the only way we can actually describe this new console for Microsoft, which is the Xbox 720. And a few websites threw some information out there to the public where they said that the new console was going to feature a system where you're not going to be able to have a disc anymore for their games, where instead they're going to have digital downloads for their games, where the only way you can actually play your games is actually stored in the hard drive of the console itself. And you're going to get it, that's how you're going to play your games now. And that way you don't need your your CDs anymore, your little discs, your little cards to store the game inside. That way you don't lose your games, that way you can just play it right then and there in your system. And a lot of people thought was, well, not a lot of people, like some percentage of people did like the idea of having that kind of system. They think it works for them, but for me, and for I guess the vast majority of us, we see that that's kind of wrong. And some of you guys are not completely understanding why it's wrong, or probably know it's wrong, but you don't probably get the whole magnitude of what that kind of stuff would happen if consoles or future consoles nowadays will feature only digital downloads for their games. And actually, a commentator touched upon this lightly, but I want to get into more detail, especially when it comes to something like this, because not only does it affect you, but it affects a vast majority of the world populace. And I'm gonna only lightly touch upon a few things concerning what it will affect us as gamers and what will affect people in general. So let me start with how it's going to affect us. Now, if every future console from now, so let's say for example, Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo decides, okay, you know what? No more CDs, no more little discs, no more video cards or SD cards anymore for your games. Now everything's going to be digital download. How's that going to affect you? And the actual obvious way it's going to affect you is that you're not going to have any physical hard copies of the games anymore. So the only way you're going to play it now is through your system, right? Now, what would happen, for example, if your console doesn't work, or you want to switch to a different console and you have your game stored in just the first one you have it, or whatever you downloaded it? Because you have no actual physical copy of the game you can't really back up a game itself unless they give you that feature to do it. But then you would argue, well, why would they even have digital downloads only if they are able to burn games on a CD or something like that? So that makes no sense at all. But for the sake of the argument, let's say they don't have that feature for the console. So that means that if your console's broken, or it's glitched, or it's your hard drive dies or some shit like that, that means you lost your game. That means your game will no longer exist for you. You cannot transfer it to a different console unless they give you that feature. That means you cannot have any backup files of that console unless they give you that feature, and unless of course they give you the cloud system how to store games, which means that it's going to be attached to an account. All you need to do is just download it from there, and then you can just have your games and your consoles everywhere you want. But that kind of actually is more extra effort on their part, which I know for the vast majority of companies, too much effort to do that kind of stuff. That means they have to spend more money on the servers to run that kind of system, which I know works for some people. It works for Steam. I don't know if it'll work for the actual companies itself. Maybe they might have that kind of money to pull off that kind of thing. But let's say for this purposes of this argument, they don't have that kind of money to pull off that thing. So that means that in order to cover the cost of actually doing that kind of cloud system that people would want to have, they're gonna charge it to you guys in order to do that. So that means you have to pay a subscription for that kind of stuff. And trust me when I say the companies will do whatever it takes to get money off of you. You know, buying the system itself will be one of the first things they'll do to you. I already know that Microsoft charge you money in order to play some multiplayer functionalities on their system, which sucks because, you know, that means every month or every year you have to renew that. So it's kind of like a subscription every once in a while, which sucks. That's why I have the PS3. That way I have to deal with that kind of bullshit. But let's say for the sake of this argument again, that they're going to administer that kind of system and they don't want to cover the cost for the cloud system. That means they have to charge you. They have to subscribe. You have to be a subscription to get this system installed into your accounts. That way they can store all your stuff in there. Right? Now that's just one of the many things that's going to happen. But also that means that you don't technically own the game anymore. So you don't have the game with you anymore. It's stuck in a virtual vast nothingness. So you don't actually have the game itself. So you can't basically, you know, play it at a friend's house. Or you can't really sell it, which is why it really sucks for you, because you cannot sell your games anymore. There's going to be no copies, any physical copies of the game anymore. That means it lost value once you bought the game itself. So when you think about it, it kind of makes sense, because whenever you buy a system or a game online, though, it'll be slightly less expensive than it would be for a hard copy, because you have to cover the cost for the plastic, for the disc, for paper, for shipping, all that good stuff. And that's why it costs so much for a game, physical hard copy of a game nowadays. So it may be like some $25 less than what it would cost for a digital download of that game. But that means that you're always going to pay for a new game price. So once you buy the game, it has no more value anymore to the public. So that means that if you bought, let's say for example, a shitty ass game and you don't like it anymore, you can't return it because it has no value anymore. And returning it means that you have to basically erase it from the cloud itself, and that means you spent money from that, and you're not gonna get a refund from that. They're not gonna refund you for digital downloads. At least I don't think they do. So you're gonna basically be stuck with the game itself that you already bought and you don't like anymore. Now, you would think that with the selling of the games that it would just only affect you. If you want to sell a used copy of a game to, let's say, a buddy or to a game store, they will not be able to take it back anymore, because there is no actual copy of itself anymore. So that means you can't return it. That means you lose money altogether, and that's just really bad for you, right? Now, when you think about it, because there is no physical copy, and that means you cannot resell your games anymore, that means that there is no more used game market. That means that is completely shut down. So stores like GameStop will have to keep up with the current game crazes as they come. So let's say in this argument that the new system came and it came with digital downloads only. That means GameStop will have to stop stop selling or producing sales that involves the old console and focus on the new console. Now, places like GameStop, places that are GameStop affiliates that makes their money off used games, will have to basically find a way to cover their costs, because you have to think about this. If you have to cover your costs for not selling any used games anymore and keeping up with only the digital downloads, you have to lay off some employees in order to do that. So that means that the job market itself will actually get affected by that. That means that they'll lay off all these people from their stores in order to cover the cost of not selling enough games, especially when they make their bread and butter from actually selling used games. And don't kid yourself, guys, to think that, you know, buying a new game with the highest price will give them the revenue. They make the revenue from buying used games for cheap and then selling it for a much higher price. Well, actually, a lot of a higher price than they want you to, which I'm kind of against. But this is going to affect the economy itself, and especially when times are tough like this, we don't need that kind of spike of an economy to go down anymore. And you have to think about it, guys. If you're a company who wants to manipulate the used game market, that means that the games that you produced before are going to be highly sought over because there's going to be a limited supply of these games now. So if you think about it, for example, let's say for those of you N64 owners, if you remember those old school games that were worth pretty substantial amount, but then were stopped producing. So games like Super Mario 64, Star Fox 64, Yoshi Story, Conker's Bad Fur Day, Duke Nukem 64, games like that are going to be very limited because they don't sell those anymore. So that means they're going to be very sought after. So they're going to be very expensive. So now all these used copies of games, they used to cost maybe like some, $20, some $25, some price like that. It's going to be spiking double, maybe double and a half. So maybe it'll be like $50 or $65, something like that. So that means it's going to manipulate the market. Not only it be making games sought after, it might even make games being sought after completely. So crappy ass games that were cheaply priced before are not going to be in existence anymore, which is kind of good as you think about it. But that means that they're losing money off of selling cheap games also, because they still make revenue as you're selling games no matter what. So they're still going to cover their costs from selling their games, right? And sure, it will make you a careful consumer and make sure that you review your games, but that means up and coming video game developers will not be able to cover their cost of their own game, especially if they actually sucks. So that means you won't get very high class revolutionary games in the system anymore, because they have to be careful to make a good game, especially when in this day of age when now they cannot resell their game anymore, especially when it's used. So in that sense, people, that is just a basic umbrella of what's going to happen if they all start to go to digital downloads. And I know you're saying to yourself, this will never happen, right? Things like this never happens to anything else, right? But you're kind of forgetting that it has happened before. If you think about it, for example, music. Music now has been digitally downloaded from the computer, from the internet, and there's no one really buys a hard copy CD anymore unless they're really into the band, they want to support them. But that's only if they want to support them in that sense. People will just illegally download all this music from the internet, and everyone wants free music, and I totally get it. But that is lost revenue from the producers, the makers of all this music. That means they don't get money off of this. So if you think about it, if they do something like this, where the only way you can buy a game is to digitally download it, that means they can basically not sell the games, but they can sell the games online also, but also post it out there on the internet for everyone to download. And that means no one's getting the revenue anymore from all these games, and they're gonna start a whole new wave of copyright infringements. And the last thing that the game developers want to happen is for their game to be copyrighted and not get paid for it. Right? So there's many ways that this can blow up out of proportion and basically make everything less worthwhile to have a digital download copy of a game. Now, you would think to yourself, well, there must be some light at the end of the tunnel, right? Of course there is. For something like this to happen, that means all the revenue for digital downloads go directly to the companies themselves. So if you're buying something from a specific developer of a game, that means that all the money goes to them, and they can able to take their cost evenly, right? They don't have to go through any red tape, don't have to go through all this shipping, handling, all this printing of the game itself, and blah 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 blah. They can just send it out on the internet, and the people can download it from there, and that's fine and all. And also they have to get the cut from the company itself of the console. So Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft in the sense will actually get a cut from the revenue itself of selling all these games, which is always good. And of course, it might bring back the used game stores nowadays. So you don't see those anymore, but maybe because this kind of thing might happen, that means that the used game store business will kind of be reboosted again, and now people who want to have used copies of previous console games will go out there and find these used game stores and get it over there, and they might be highly collectible, highly valuable, and all that good stuff, and maybe in that sense you can get your money from there. But I highly doubt that many of these kind of stores will arise from this kind of situation from happening. But anyway, guys, I think those are my 2 cents of what would happen with digital downloads of games. If you guys agree or you guys have an opinion about this, please let me know in the comments below, in my inboxes. I would check them frequently. I would love to talk to you guys about this, because this is a problem, not a problem, but this situation that we're faced right now, and we always got to think about the consequences of the future decisions we make, or else, you know, it might be too late to change them, right? But anyway, guys, I'm gonna get out of here. Enjoy your day / evening whenever you're watching this. And wouldn't you know it, the person who actually was running the server, well, not running the server, but running the game, hosting the game, bowed out, and we were not able to get past level wave 20, which sucks, because I was really getting into the game also, and it was really fun. But you know, that's what happens sometimes. He got pissed off. But anyway, guys, I will see you later. Enjoy your day / evening whenever you're watching this. This is SecondBlank saying peace out. Later, Gators.